In 1910, the United States faced a serious meat crisis. The American frontier had closed, the cattle ranges were overgrazed, and meat prices were soaring. Meanwhile, Louisiana's bayous were being overtaken by invasive water hyacinth, choking waterways and devastating the local fishing industry. It was against this backdrop that Louisiana Congressman Robert Broussard introduced what might be one of the most bizarre pieces of legislation in American history, H.R. 23-26-1, known simply today as the Hippo Bill. The proposal was strikingly straightforward. Import hippopotamuses from Africa, release them into the Louisiana bayous, and create a new meat industry for America. These hippos would solve two problems at once. They would eat the invasive water hyacinth, clogging the waterways, and provide a new source of meat for American tables. Broussard promoted it as the solution to what newspapers had dubbed the meat question. Behind this seemingly absurd proposal stood two remarkable figures, Frederick Russell Burnham and Fritz Duquesne. Burnham was America's famous scout, a man who had explored Africa extensively and served as the inspiration for the Boy Scouts. Duquesne was a South African-born adventurer and soldier, and these men were once sworn enemies during the Second Boer War. Duquesne had even been tasked with assassinating Burnham, yet here they were, united in Washington, D.C., testifying before Congress about the virtues of lake cow bacon. Their testimony was surprisingly compelling. Hippos, they argued, were perfectly suited for Louisiana's environment. They would consume the water hyacinth that was destroying the local ecosystems. Their meat was lean and, according to both men, delicious. One hippo could provide as much meat as 4 cows while consuming vegetation that the cattle could not eat. The animals would thrive in otherwise unusable swampland, turning water hyacinth into valuable protein. The idea wasn't as outlandish as it might sound to modern ears. America has a long history of animal imports. Horses and cattle weren't native to North America. Sheep, pigs, and chickens were all introduced species that became agricultural mainstays. Even more recently, Texas had successfully introduced African antelopes for hunting. So why not hippos? The Department of Agriculture took the proposal seriously enough to conduct a study. They concluded that hippo ranching was technically feasible. The Louisiana climate was suitable, the animals would indeed eat the water hyacinth, and there was no obvious biological reason why it wouldn't work. The meat crisis lent urgency to the proposal. Beef prices had risen 60% in just a few years. The press dubbed it lake cow bacon, and newspapers across the country ran enthusiastic articles about the prospect of hippo meat. Some even published speculative recipes. Experts suggested that hippo meat would taste like a cross between pork and beef. Proponents argued that Americans would quickly develop a taste for it, just as they had for other once exotic meats. The proposal gained serious momentum. Congressman Broussard secured support from then-President Theodore Roosevelt, himself a renowned hunter and conservation advocate. The bill requested $250,000 to import hippos and establish the initial ranching operations, about $7 million in today's money. Various capitalists expressed interest in investing in hippo ranches. But the story of America's almost hippo ranching industry reveals something deeper about early 20th century America. It was a time of remarkable optimism about humanity's ability to reshape nature to its needs. This was the era of massive irrigation projects, species introduction, and landscape-scale engineering. The idea of importing African megafauna to solve an American food crisis didn't seem outlandish, it seemed progressive. The proposal also reflected growing concerns about food scarcity. America's population was booming and traditional cattle ranching was showing its limits. The meat question wasn't just about prices, it was about whether America could continue to feed itself in the modern era. Hippo ranching represented one of several radical solutions proposed during the period. Ultimately, the Hippo Bill failed to pass Congress. Several factors contributed to its demise. The logistics of importing and containing hippos proved more complex than originally suggested. Questions arose about safety and liability. Hippos are, after all, among the most dangerous animals in Africa. The meat industry invested in cattle quietly opposed the idea. World War I shifted national priorities and the movement passed. Instead, America solved its meat crisis through industrialization. Factory farming, feedlots, and modern agricultural techniques increased meat production without requiring exotic species. The water hyacinth problem was eventually addressed through chemical and biological control methods, though it remains a challenge in Louisiana's waterways even today. The key figures moved on to other ventures. Burnham went on to discover major oil fields in California. Duquesne's life took a darker turn. He was later exposed as a German spy during both world wars. Congressman Broussard continued representing Louisiana until his death in 1918. But the Hippo Bill remains a fascinating moment in American history, a time when the solution to a food crisis might have fundamentally altered the American landscape. Had it passed, the Louisiana bayous today might have been home to ranched hippos, and Americans might think of hippo meat as being as American as beef. It's also a reminder of how close we sometimes are to dramatically different futures. The line between visionary solution and historical curiosity is often remarkably thin. Today, as we face new challenges in food production and environmental management, the story of the Hippo Bill offers an intriguing perspective on how we approach novel solutions to complex problems. The legacy of the failed initiative lives on in unexpected ways. When we discuss modern proposals to sustainable food sources or innovative solutions to environmental problems, we're engaging in the same type of imaginative problem solving that led Broussard, Burnham, and Duquesne to envision hippos on the bayou. The only difference is that now we might be talking about lab-grown meat or insect protein instead of lake cow bacon.